Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman29, and I finally got around to it. Child of Truth emailed me a great PM on some questions and uh, wanted my opinion on something. And uh, I'm horrible at this sort of thing, but I had to research some stuff. Not that I was researching the whole time. I was busy doing some other things, but I did finally get around to it. So hopefully this might shed some new light or some different ideas on some of the topics he presented. And this might not be a very good video because I had no prior knowledge really of some of the topics that he was discussing and had to run around. Then I got fascinated by it, and one thing led to another, so this video could get kind of long. The question was on the idea of the Baphomet, and it first appears in the forced confessions of the Templar Knights, and then it was rather written by a guy named Levi, Epileus Levi, I believe, incorrectly associated that with a type of demon, Lord of Mendes, I think it was, and from the writings of Herodotus, it ended up being interpreted into something that was totally different than it was not. And using Atbash, as Child of Truth pointed out, it could relate in some ways to the Sophia of the Gnostics, and Archamoth is another name to look up. Achamoth, Moth. It was from the Valentinian ideas, and so this is the thing with the serpent. You mentioned there's also a god, Ningishta Ningishta, Ningishzida. It's probably the oldest idea of the serpents intertwining with the tree of life or tree of knowledge, which may have influenced the idea that was retaliated in the text of Genesis. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the serpent tricks Gilgamesh, or steals the flower of life, takes it back to the sea. Also, the serpent was seen as kind of like shedding the skin, shedding off rebirth, and the Gnostics with the serpent with the swallowed tail was kind of like the yin yang of the Chinese, both good and evil in the circle. Also, you could probably get the circle idea and that wheel, so to speak, of the wheel of Sanshara, which is as good as it gets, that's as bad as it gets, as bad as it gets, that's as good as it gets. So now the ideas on the Baphomet ended up being associated with anybody they didn't like. So the church in their forced confessions said that the Templar Knights were worshipping such a god. However, it would be smart, and I would hope that people would go back and try to find archaeology and buildings with images of these creatures on them, whatever it was, and look at it from that point of view, because a lot of times things were added to drawings and it's really, really skewed. Now, Jack Chick and Leo Taxel made a hoax associating the Baphomet with the Freemasons, which was not true at all. And it ended up being a huge thing. And finally, the Church of Satan ended up adopting the symbol of the goat and a downward pointed pentagram, and it's still used among Satanists. So it's just amazing how evangelical evangelists like Jack Chick, in their retaliation to the Freemasons and to paint them in a really bad light, would associate the Baphomet as a demon to them. And the Baphomet may have not been a demon, but it just may have been associated with it as time progressed. And I think that Eliphas Levi had a lot to do with the origins of how that is viewed. And the Baphomet was also related to the god Pan, I believe. Now some other things on the idea of Sophia. Also, Logos would be something to look up, and also Shekinah, or it's said by evangelicals, pronounced probably wrongly, Shekinah, the presence of the Lord. Put all these together, Logos, Sophia, Archemoth, Shekinah, and kind of view it and see the idea of the Gnostics and the divine spark, and those sorts of ideas, eons, and other things, and put them all together and think about them as a collective whole in Gnosticism. And you can see how a lot of borrowing and interchanging went on of these ideas, and this is what made it tough. In the proto-Orthodox movement, in their bid to stamp out the Gnostics, they destroyed a lot of texts, and they were probably the hardest group to stomp out because there were many groups of Gnostics, and there were proto-Gnostics coming out of Jewish mysticism, and they would take teachings from the proto-Orthodox and rework them in their minds. So you would be saying the same thing, however, their meaning in their definitions and for words were different. And the reason why the Orthodox retaliated fiercely against the Gnostics was because of that. And I believe that a lot of times the Apostle Paul, in trying to correct and make straight the ideas against the Gnostics, ended up getting tangled up in his writings, and a lot of times they're mistaken, and he had a tough time with the Gnostics. There's a great book that put it all together. It's called Paul and the Gnostics. If you can buy it, check it out. See what I'm trying to find the author of here. Schmithals, Schmithals. He's a great writer on that subject, and there's a lot of Greek used in that text, so you might want to get a transliterated version of the Greek. Now, probably one of my favorite texts of the Gnostics is the Gospel of Thomas, and in that verse 2 of the Gospel of Thomas says, Jesus said, "Let them who seeks continue seeking until he finds. And when he finds, he will become troubled. And when he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over all." And that says a lot about searching for truth. Also, verse 12 of that, which may be Eisman, the Dead Sea Scrolls in Early Christianity. I think he had a book out, Eisman. You can look him up. Made the connection when the Gospel of Thomas, when he was discussing the Gospel of Thomas, the disciples said to Jesus, "We know that you will depart from us. Who will be our leader?" And Jesus said, "Whoever you are to go to James the righteous, for whose sake heaven and earth came into being." Eisman connects the teacher of righteousness from the Essene community, or from the Essene text, to Jesus' brother James the righteous. So there's a whole book out on that. You can check that out. Another big beef that the proto-Orthodox movement had with the Gnostics was the idea that Sophia, or wisdom, or the spark, came down inside of Christ at his baptism, and it left before he died on the cross. So Irenaeus, in his book on heresies, against heresies, talks about that, and that's a great text to read. Now, people ask, well, can some truth be? See it all as literature. All these groups were early Jesus communities competing, and proto-Orthodox and Orthodox movement won out. And these are all different views on how people viewed Christ and how they viewed spirituality. And some of these, well, almost all of these views are borrowed from the cultures that surrounded the Gnostics. Judaism, obviously. Early Christian ideas about who Christ was, obviously. Mystic groups from both of those sides influenced it. And I would say even maybe a little bit of Hindu and Buddhism survives in these kinds of texts. So to say that they're all bad or they're all good would be a long stretch. I don't believe everything should be as black and white as some make it. Read all this and see how these groups of people viewed Christ, and possibly you may get something out of it. And you also learn how the different views were argued over and fought over on what would one day become Orthodox. And these people right here, until the Nag Hammadi Library was found, appeared to be the losers. But now their ideas are shared because of the Nag Hammadi Library was published and worked on, and so now we have this. I'm sorry if this video is of very poor quality. Hopefully some of you guys will get on Wikipedia and check some of this stuff out and the names I mentioned, and I apologize for it being so long. Hope I did a good job. So take care, friends. Take care of yourself and each other.